You're that 60, 62, 63-year-old entrepreneur that's out there that loves what he does, gets up with a spring in his step every day, knows at some point this is going to happen for him in the future, doesn't have this team in place now. What would you say to him about or her about the importance of putting that team together, and where do they start?
So, bear with me because your question has a tremendous amount of depth and layers to it, and I want to walk it out, and unpack the different layers. So, bear with me here. The embedded in your question and your statement is an assumption that's tragically made by business owners. And if there is one thing I want listeners to take away from our time, it's the point that I'm about to make. The assumption that business owners make is that they are going to sell the company, and it's going to be similar to selling a house. They're going to find a buyer. The buyer is going to wire an extreme amount of money to their personal bank account. They are going to leave the keys to the business under the doormat, and then they are going to go to the Caribbean or Europe or whatever it is. And life will be good. Problem solved. That is just not the case. What actually happens is a business owner in the 11th hour, for whatever reason, it could be a health reason, it could be anything, and it varies person to person. They come to us and they say, okay, it's 11 p.m. I'm ready to sell, and at midnight, I want to be wearing the glass slipper and I'm out of here. Make that happen. Well, what actually happens is we create a group of buyers that creates an auction. And the buyer says, oh, that's great, but we actually realize that this business owner has built the company around themselves, and we need that business owner to stick around for 2 or 3 years. So it takes, on average, 9 months to sell a company from when the engagement gets signed to the closing table. 9 months, so about a year just to sell the business. And then, oh, by the way, the business owner is going to have to stick around 1 to 3 years. Here's the other realization. The buyer wants to incentivize that business owner to stick around and do a good job. So they really create a carrot in front of the business owner, and they apply the value of the sale to usually around 20 to 30% that rolls into equity of the new business owner. And what really surprises the business owner is that their quote unquote second bite of the apple ends up being bigger than the first bite. Well, you take that 60 to 65-year-old, and then all of a sudden they realize that the finish line is when they're 70. And where things really go sideways is their spouse thinks the same thing they thought, that, oh, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to have millions of dollars wired to my account, and I'm finally going to get my spouse back after 30 years of not having them around. And then the business owner has to go back and say, well, I didn't realize this, but I actually have to stick around for another 3 to 5 years. And it creates this angst and this regret because they didn't realize what they were actually signing up for. And Brent, just to really drive the point home, most of the businesses that come to us actually need 1 to 3 years just to get the business buttoned up and ready to sell with a business consultant. And so you've got 1 to 3 years to prepare the business to sell, 1 year to sell the business, and then 2 to 5 years that the buyer wants you to stick around. And so if you wait and it's 11 p.m. and you're 65 years old, it's another 3 to 7 years before the real exit. Business owners have no idea what you and I just exchanged, what you and I just covered. They have no idea. And if they really understood it, their calculus would be much, much different. Let me finish my point with one more thing that's absolutely mission critical. A buyer buys two things. They buy past performance, usually the past 3 to 5 years performance, and they want to see two things, generally speaking. They want to see revenue in an upward trajectory, and they want to see earnings and profitability in an upward trajectory. They don't want to see them flatlined, and they definitely don't want to see them decreasing. So the business owner, and this is contrary to kind of human nature, the business owner actually, if we're using a clock, instead of 11 p.m., they want to start preparing and they want to take that business to market around 7 or 8 p.m., 9 p.m., not 11 p.m. But the problem is human nature at 7 or 8 p.m., the business owner is thinking, man, this is as good as it gets. Why would I sell now? It's only going to keep getting better. And if I can encourage the entrepreneur with one thing, do not wait until 11 p.m. because your fate is going to get forced on you rather than the opposite.
Jeff, I think that's probably, no exaggeration, probably the most important 5 or 6 minutes there that any entrepreneur that is in that demographic that we talked about could possibly have heard. I think you nailed that.